Let me get you to react to something that one of your peers said, another director. Steven Spielberg can't be compared with people like Mike Nichols or Barry Levinson. There is a place for mass entertainment, but it shouldn't be confused with art or quality award-winning filmmaking.
Sometimes I think that statements like that are pretentious in themselves, because it sort of says that, you know, art is serious, and art can't move you. Art can't be on a bicycle with E.T. and fly across the moon. That can't be art, you know, that because it takes your heart along with it through the sky, and it makes you feel like a kid again.
Hey, how's it going? Nick Poulimenakos here, back again for one last video essay of 2022, and I know it's been a while since my last video, but I wanted to come on here to talk to you all about a movie that hasn't left my brain since I saw it 3 months ago. You see, whether you've been watching my videos since September 2020 when I posted my first video essay on the Snyder Cut, or watching since I posted about School of Rock, I think the one thing you've all come to realize about me is that I love movies. Everything about movies is just so freaking fascinating to me. I've loved film ever since my mom started showing me the Walt Disney animated movies collection on VHS, while my dad introduced me to storied franchises like Jurassic Park, Star Wars, and X-Men at probably too young of an age. Movies bring us together, help us escape to new worlds, better understand our own planet and the people in them, and best of all, they can help us look deep within our lives so that we may accept and understand our own time on this planet. There's just nothing like the movies, but I bet you're asking yourself, why am I singing the praises of the storytelling medium that I love the most in this world?
I got to know!
You see, this year I had the privilege to attend the second last day of the Toronto International Film Festival. I used to attend the festival as a member of the press, but this past event, I was just a fan who could drag his friends to an 11 a.m. showing, get popcorn with extra butter, and sit down to watch Steven Spielberg's newest film, The Fabelmans. A fictionalized take on his own life and his journey towards becoming a film director, The Fabelmans acts as a way for Spielberg to come to terms with his own life, his relationship with his parents, and his undying love for film as an art form. I think I've said it at least a few times now that Spielberg is my favorite director and Jurassic Park is my favorite movie. Clearly I have a bias for this man, and when it was announced that Spielberg would finally be coming to TIFF, I knew I had to see this movie. And through no shock whatsoever, not only did I love The Fabelmans, I think it might be one of Spielberg's greatest works ever. An intensely intimate, emotionally gut-wrenching, and surprisingly hilarious journey of a boy trying to fulfill his dreams. The Fabelmans had me falling in love with film all over again. I knew that after I walked out of the theater, I needed to write about it. I needed to go to my own artistic outlet, because that's the kind of movie this is. A story where you better understand your own life, the hardships you faced, while also celebrating the achievements, advancements, and artistry of motion pictures. The Fabelmans is Steven Spielberg's love letter to life and to cinema, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So, as always, grab a snack, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and let's jump into my final video essay of 2022.
Hey, Sammy.
Stand and deliver.
What kind of movie are we gonna make?
In The Fabelmans, we see Spielberg, portrayed here as Sammy Fabelman, navigate his upside-down life. His mother is a former concert pianist turned homemaker, while his father is an engineer. Both are present at Sammy's first trip to the movies, where he's instantly hooked on the art form thanks to the film The Greatest Show on Earth, which features one of the all-time greatest crash sequences in film history. From there, Sammy's love for film continues to blossom. He begins shooting home movies for his family, as well as short films and feature-length projects with his friends. As this happens, though, Sammy experiences several hardships alongside his family, such as various moves across the country, anti-Semitic classmates, his father seeing his love for film as nothing more than a hobby, and worst of all, his mother seemingly falling in love with his father's best friend Benny, played wonderfully here by Seth Rogen. Above all else, as I said earlier, this film very much seems to be Spielberg coming face to face with his life. He seeks to make sense of it all, more so than what he's tried to do with his past features. It's no secret that the divorce of Spielberg's parents had a long impact on his movies. In many of them, he's tried to reconcile with the pain he felt over his parents splitting up, but in those movies, that familial aspect never felt like the ultimate focus of the story. A major part of it, sure, but there was still an alien to rescue or dinosaurs to escape from. That's not the case here in The Fabelmans. Here, it's the main focus, and we get an in-depth look as to how Spielberg ultimately views his family life and his love for filmmaking. In short, I thought it was rather beautiful how the story of the Fabelman family is portrayed here. For Spielberg, or in this case Sammy, it's clear that he doesn't harbor any hate for his mother or what happened between her and his father, but that doesn't mean there isn't pain here. You know, it's complicated. See, it was Sammy's mother who always supported his dreams of being a filmmaker. Not to say his father didn't. After all, it was his camera that Sammy uses to shoot his movies, his father assists on his film sets, and he even bought Sammy an advanced editing machine when Sammy began shooting more elaborate projects. But his father still viewed his filmmaking aspirations as a hobby, something that Sammy will grow out of when he enters the quote-unquote real world. Any artist can relate to that sentiment, a parent who is unable to see your dreams the way you do. Sammy is often at odds with filmmaking with his father, but not his mother. His mother is a former artist herself, so she, more than anyone, can see why Sammy loves film so much. She used to be a concert pianist, but moved on from it and became a homemaker. It's obvious that she loves her family and her husband, but something is missing from her, something that she longs for but can never find. For some time now, she's been unable to explore that artistic side of herself, so when Sammy discovers his passion for film, she backs him unconditionally and encourages him to pursue his dreams. But that's where things get complicated, as it's Sammy's home movies that eventually reveal that his mother has fallen in love with someone else. In any other movie, I feel as though the story would take the easy way out and simply villainize the mother who cheats on her husband. But here, Spielberg opts for a different portrait. Spielberg doesn't outright characterize his mother as the villain in this. Selfish? Maybe, especially in the eyes of a kid who's seeing his family break down around him, but not the villain, never the villain. In crafting this story, I think that Spielberg has finally come to terms with his maternal relationship, accepting that people are complicated and there's not much else to it. As Frank Sinatra once said, that's life. It may not be pretty all the time, but everyone only gets one. We can spend it feeling angry, or we can seek to understand, forgive, move on, and live life to the fullest. Boy, that was corny, but I guess judging by the title of this essay, it was always going to be corny. Wait a minute, where was I? Right, okay, back to the Fabelmans. In the film, Sammy says that while his mother is making a supposedly selfish decision by leaving the family to be with Benny, he also sees her need to be happy, and that she hasn't been for some time. It isn't because his father was a bad person or someone who refused to love her. If anything, even with all their disagreements, Sammy's father is a perfectly fine person. You can just see, though, how his father's role in all of this formulated Spielberg's mindsets towards fathers in his own films, whether they are either absent or battling their own familial demons. Spielberg leaves no stone unturned when it comes to painting as accurate of a frame as possible when it comes to his family. But through all that, he and Sammy realize that pain can come from anywhere, even when things seem fine. Sometimes one person in a relationship does nothing specific to warrant the other person falling for someone else. Sometimes that love is too strong to keep within, and no matter how mad you get at that person for the decisions they've made, sometimes it's better to accept them for who they are. Sammy's mother loves her son, loves her daughters, and still has love for Sammy's dad, but her heart had other plans, and with this story, Spielberg can finally accept that and move on from it. Now, obviously that last line though is easier said than done, and while 75-year-old Steven Spielberg may be ready to pack everything up and move on, the same can't be said for younger Spielberg, or once again, in this case, Sammy Fabelman. His mother's emotional affair wasn't the only thing he went through. Sammy faces numerous hardships in the Fabelmans, but the one thing that's always there for him through thick and thin are the movies. Sammy's love for cinema exceeds being a fan of it. He needs it to live, needs it to survive, needs it to make sense of the world he's living in. As Sammy's world concurrently crumbles and rebuilds itself, it's movies where he finds peace. Films are what Sammy uses to make sense of everything. In a scene where he confronts one of his high school bullies, a rather touching scene, I should actually say, Sammy says that films allow him control over his otherwise uncontrollable life. When he's behind a camera, he's in charge, he's calling the shots, and everyone looks to him to lead. Unlike his real life, Sammy is in control of every single aspect of a movie, and because of that, filmmaking almost becomes a drug to him, something he can't or even refuses to live without. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Spielberg shows the good and bad sides of becoming engulfed in your passions. They help us escape, rethink, or even reshape the world we live in, but they can also greatly impact those in our lives, both in good and bad ways. It's his devotion to filmmaking that shows him what his mother is hiding from the family, but his devotion is also what keeps him going. No matter how hard life gets, no matter how loud the world seems, filmmaking is always there for Sammy. There is such inherent beauty and inspiration in that I think it's something we can all relate to. This film, above all else, is a celebration of the filmmaking craft, the intricate, detailed, complicated, yet fascinating moving parts that go into making a motion picture. Spielberg spends long stretches of time showcasing how Sammy makes his films, the hard work they take, and the innovative techniques he comes up with in order to get the perfect shot. It's not news to anyone that Spielberg loves filmmaking, but in The Fabelmans, it's as if we're taken inside the mind of Spielberg, seeing every gear turn inside that insanely creative brain of his that'll eventually lead to getting the shot he desires for his films. There's never a moment where we rush past how something is shot, how someone is directed, or how a sequence gets edited. It's all here on display to tell you that filmmaking is hard work, but it is so damn beautiful, man. Spielberg is pouring his heart out here when it comes to his relationship with his chosen profession. Filmmaking helped him break away from the worries of his own life, and for the last 40-something years, he's been helping us do the same. Whether it's transporting us to an island filled with dinosaurs, or taking us on a journey to find the Holy Grail, films are wondrous creations that should be cherished, studied, critiqued, and embraced. Films can teach us things we might not have known, tell universal stories with people from different walks of life, and as I've said a few times now in this video, help us come to terms with the pain and trauma we may have experienced, just like they did with Sammy, and just like they did with Spielberg. Steven Spielberg is a personal hero of mine, someone who I greatly admire both as a filmmaker and as a person. His films make up some of my earliest memories when it comes to watching movies in general. He's someone who's able to channel his pain and hardship into his dream and love of storytelling, and in The Fabelmans, we get an in-depth, albeit somewhat fictionalized, take on how it all transpired. In the end, what I think this film does is act almost like an epilogue to Spielberg's storied career up until this point. Every emotion he's ever felt for his family and filmmaking is on full display here. All the pain in his heart, confusion in his brain, and happiness in his work. Spielberg sums up his entire journey with The Fabelmans. He finds closure in his upbringing and celebrates the craft that we all talk about day in and day out. I never knew I needed a film about Steven Spielberg's life and his love for movies, but my God, man, I am so glad we got it. It's one of those stories that had me hugging my parents as soon as the movie finished and thinking about it for days on end. What a story, what a director, what a life, what a dream, man. Hello, film fanatics of the YouTube community. Thanks so much for checking out my video essay on The Fabelmans. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at Poulimenakos, and I've been Nick Poulimenakos, and I just wanted to thank you all for watching all my videos this year, and I can't wait to come out with new video essays next year. Later, future filmmakers.